The moment Adrian Cole opened his door that Friday night, he expected a nervous smile, maybe an awkward handshake. What he got instead was a woman's trembling whisper. "Someone followed me here. He's still outside." In that instant, a simple blind date transformed into something far more dangerous. What Adrian didn't know was that his decision in the next 60 seconds would set off a chain of events that would change not just one life, but dozens, including his own. This is that story. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Now, let's begin. The apartment building on Riverside Avenue had seen better days. Its brick facade, weathered by decades of harsh winters and humid summers, bore the quiet dignity of a structure that refused to surrender to time. The hallway lighting flickered intermittently on the third floor, casting dancing shadows that made the narrow corridor feel longer than it actually was. Adrian Cole stood in front of his bathroom mirror, adjusting his collar for the third time in as many minutes. His reflection stared back at him with an expression somewhere between resignation and mild panic. At 32, he'd forgotten how to do this, how to prepare for a date, how to make small talk with a stranger, how to be someone other than dad or the guy from accounting. His daughter Mia's toys were scattered across the living room floor behind him. A half-finished puzzle depicting cartoon dinosaurs occupied the coffee table. The apartment smelled faintly of the macaroni and cheese they'd had for dinner, mixed with the lavender air freshener his sister Claire had given him last Christmas. "You look fine," he muttered to himself, then immediately grimaced at how unconvincing he sounded. The truth was, Adrian hadn't been on a date since before Mia was born. His ex-wife had left when their daughter was barely 2 years old, disappearing into a new life in California with barely a backward glance. The divorce papers had arrived via courier. The child support checks came sporadically, if at all. For the past 3 years, Adrian's entire world had contracted to a simple rhythm: work, daycare pickup, dinner, bedtime stories, repeat. Claire had been pestering him for months about getting back out there. She'd finally worn him down 2 weeks ago during Sunday dinner at her house. "Her name is Elena," Claire had said, sliding her phone across the table to show him a Facebook profile. "She volunteers at the youth center where I teach yoga. She's sweet, she's single, and she actually reads books, real books, Adrian, not just Facebook memes." Adrian had squinted at the photo. Elena Brooks. Dark hair pulled back in a casual ponytail, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. She was standing in front of a colorful mural, her arm around a teenage girl who was grinning at the camera. "I don't know, Claire. You're doing this," his sister had said firmly. "I already told her you'd text her. Don't make me look like a liar." So he'd texted. They'd exchanged pleasantries. She'd seemed normal, kind even. When she suggested meeting at his place since she lived nearby and he had to arrange a babysitter, it had seemed practical rather than forward. Claire was watching Mia for the evening at her house, giving Adrian a rare night of freedom. Now, checking his watch for the dozenth time, Adrian felt his stomach twist with anticipation. 7:45. Elena was due at 8. He moved through the apartment one final time, straightening cushions and pushing Mia's toys into a somewhat neater pile in the corner. He'd set out cheese and crackers on the kitchen counter, an attempt at appearing sophisticated that now struck him as trying too hard. The wine he'd bought sat in the refrigerator, probably the wrong temperature. He had no idea about wine. At 7:58, Adrian's phone buzzed. "Elena, just parking, be right up." His heart rate kicked up a notch. This was happening. He was actually doing this. At exactly 8 o'clock, the knock came. Adrian crossed the living room in 4 strides, pausing for just a second to take a breath before opening the door. The woman standing in his doorway matched her photo, but the resemblance ended there. Her face was pale, almost bloodless. Her dark eyes were wide, pupils dilated with what Adrian immediately recognized as fear. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't extending a hand for a polite handshake. Instead, she stepped forward, closing the distance between them to barely a foot. Her voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. "Someone's following me." The words hit Adrian like cold water. For a moment, his brain struggled to process the disconnect between what he'd expected and what was happening. "What?" he managed. Elena's eyes flicked past his shoulder, scanning the hallway behind her. "There was a man in the parking lot. He followed me to the building. I think..." Her voice caught. I think he might have come inside. Adrian didn't think. He reacted. Come in, he said, stepping aside. Elena moved past him quickly, her shoulder brushing against his arm. She was trembling. Adrian could see her hands shaking as she clutched her purse against her chest. He closed the door and threw the deadbolt, the metallic click sounding unnaturally loud in the sudden silence. Then he moved to the window and carefully pulled the curtain aside, just enough to peer down at the street below. The parking lot was illuminated by a single streetlight that cast long shadows across the cracked asphalt. A handful of cars sat in their assigned spaces. Adrian's eyes scanned each one, looking for movement, for a figure, for anything out of place. Nothing. The street beyond was equally quiet. A cat darted across the road. A few houses down, someone's television flickered behind closed curtains. Do you see him? Elena's voice came from behind him, tight with tension. No, Adrian said honestly, but that doesn't mean he's not there. He let the curtain fall back into place and turned to face her properly for the first time. Elena was standing in the middle of his living room, still clutching her purse. She wore jeans and a dark blue sweater that looked warm and practical. Her hair was down now, falling past her shoulders in waves that looked like they'd been rushed through with anxious fingers during her walk-up. She was pretty. Claire had been right about that. But right now, all Adrian could see was her fear. Tell me exactly what happened, he said, keeping his voice calm and even. Elena took a shaky breath. I parked in the visitor section. When I got out of my car, I noticed a man standing near the building entrance, just standing there. I didn't think much of it at first. I figured he was waiting for someone or having a smoke or whatever. She paused, wrapping her arms around herself. But when I started walking toward the building, he moved. Not toward me exactly, but parallel, like he was matching my pace. I thought maybe it was coincidence, so I stopped to check my phone, just to see what he'd do. And, Adrian prompted gently, he stopped too. Elena's voice dropped even lower. That's when I knew something was wrong. I changed direction, like I was going to walk around the building instead of straight to the entrance. He changed direction too, always keeping the same distance, never getting closer, but never falling back either. Adrian felt a chill run down his spine. Did you get a look at him? Not really. It's dark out there, and he stayed in the shadows mostly. Average height, I think. Maybe wearing a dark jacket or hoodie. I couldn't see his face. She laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. I know how this sounds. I know it could have been nothing. Maybe he lives here too. Maybe he was just walking the same direction by chance. But you don't think so, Adrian said. No. Elena met his eyes directly. I don't. Because when I finally reached the building entrance and came inside, I heard the door open behind me. Footsteps in the stairwell. I didn't wait to see if he'd follow me up. I just ran. Took the stairs 2 at a time until I got to your floor. Adrian moved back to the window, this time pulling the curtain fully closed. The apartment suddenly felt smaller, more vulnerable. His third-floor unit had always seemed like a decent height, high enough to discourage casual break-ins, low enough to escape from in an emergency. Now it felt exposed. Have you experienced anything like this before? He asked. Anyone bothering you, following you, anything unusual? Elena hesitated, then shook her head. No, nothing like this. I mean, every woman has stories about guys being creepy or not taking no for an answer, but this felt different, more deliberate, more... She trailed off, searching for the word. Predatory, Adrian finished quietly. Yes, the word came out as a whisper. A heavy silence settled between them. The cheerful evening Adrian had half-heartedly prepared for had evaporated completely, replaced by something darker and more urgent. Okay, he said, making a decision. First thing, you're safe here. The door is locked. We're 3 floors up. Even if someone did follow you into the building, they don't know which apartment you're in. Unless they saw which floor I went to, Elena countered. True, but there are 6 apartments on this floor. They'd have to knock on each door to find you, which would draw attention. It wasn't much comfort, and they both knew it, but Elena seemed to relax fractionally. Second, Adrian continued, we should call the police, file a report. Even if the guy is gone now, it's important to document this. Elena's expression shifted to something between embarrassment and frustration. And tell them what? That a man walked near me in a parking lot? That I think someone might have followed me, but I can't describe them and they didn't actually do anything? They take stalking seriously. Do they? Elena cut him off, her voice sharper now. Because I have friends who've reported way more concrete things than this and got nowhere. Call us back if he actually threatens you. Try to get a photo next time. Are you sure you're not overreacting? The bitterness in her voice told Adrian this wasn't theoretical. She'd been through this before, or known someone who had. You're probably right, he admitted. But the call creates a record, a timestamp. If anything else happens, it shows a pattern. Elena considered this, then nodded slowly. Okay, you're right. We should call. Adrian pulled out his phone, but before he could dial, Elena spoke again. Wait, can we just sit for a minute first? I need to calm down. I can barely think straight right now. Of course. Adrian gestured to the couch, suddenly acutely aware that they were two strangers in his apartment under the most bizarre circumstances imaginable. This was supposed to be a first date. Instead, it had become something else entirely, something that felt both more intimate and more terrifying. Elena sank onto the couch, finally releasing her death grip on her purse and setting it beside her. She rubbed her hands over her face, then through her hair. I'm sorry, she said. This is insane. You must think I'm completely crazy. I don't, Adrian said firmly. He sat down on the opposite end of the couch, maintaining a respectful distance. I think something scared you, and your instincts told you to get somewhere safe. That's not crazy. That's survival. Elena looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since arriving. Your sister told me you were one of the good ones. I'm starting to see why. Adrian felt heat creep up his neck. I'm just doing what anyone should do. No, Elena said quietly. You're really not. Most people would have sent me away, told me I was overreacting, suggested I was being paranoid. Have people done that to you before? The question hung in the air. Elena's expression shifted, something painful flickering behind her eyes. Not to me specifically, she said after a moment, but I work with teenage girls at the youth center. You wouldn't believe how many of them have stories about feeling unsafe and having adults dismiss their concerns. Boys will be boys. He's just teasing you. Don't be so dramatic. We teach girls to trust their instincts and then punish them when they actually do. Adrian felt a sudden, fierce protectiveness toward his daughter wash over him. Mia was only 5 now, still small enough to believe her dad could fix anything. But someday she'd be a teenager, navigating a world that would simultaneously tell her to be careful and accuse her of being paranoid. I have a daughter, he said. She's 5. I think about this stuff a lot. About how to teach her to be safe without making her afraid of everything. Elena's expression softened. Claire mentioned you were a single dad. That must be hard. It has its moments, Adrian admitted. But she's the best thing that ever happened to me. Everything else is just logistics. What's her name? Mia. That's beautiful. Elena smiled for the first time since arriving, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. Is she with Claire tonight? Yeah, sleepover at Aunt Claire's house, which is basically Mia's favorite thing in the world. Claire spoils her rotten. That's what aunts are for. A comfortable silence settled between them, different from the tense quiet of a few minutes ago. Adrian found himself studying Elena more carefully now that the immediate crisis had passed. She was probably close to his age, maybe a year or two younger. There were laugh lines around her eyes that suggested she smiled often, despite the fear currently etched on her face. Her hands, no longer shaking quite so badly, had short, practical nails with no polish. Working hands. Can I get you something? He asked. Water? Wine? I have both, though I'll be honest, I don't know anything about wine. Claire picked it out. Elena laughed, a genuine sound this time. Water would be great, actually. Adrian got up and moved to the kitchen, grateful for something practical to do. He filled 2 glasses from the filtered pitcher in his refrigerator, his mind racing. The rational part of his brain, the part that had to function every day as a responsible adult and parent, wanted to believe Elena had misread the situation. That the man in the parking lot had been a coincidence, that the footsteps in the stairwell had belonged to another resident. But a deeper, more instinctive part of him knew better. He'd seen Elena's fear. It was real, visceral. the kind of fear that came from genuine threat, not imagination. He returned to the living room and handed her a glass. Elena accepted it gratefully and took a long drink. "Thank you," she said, "for all of this, for letting me in, for believing me." "You don't need to thank me for that." "Yeah," Elena said quietly, "I really do." They sat in silence for a moment, sipping their water. Adrian's apartment had never felt quite so small or quite so exposed. Every creak of the building settling, every distant sound from neighboring apartments made him hyper-alert. "Tell me about the youth center," he said, trying to shift the conversation toward something normal. "What do you do there?" Elena seemed grateful for the change in subject. "I'm a program coordinator. We run after-school programs for kids aged 12 to 18. Homework help, art classes, sports leagues, that kind of thing. A lot of the kids we work with come from rough situations. Single-parent homes, poverty, sometimes abuse or neglect. The center is a safe space for them." "That sounds meaningful," Adrian said, and meant it. "It is." Elena's whole demeanor changed as she talked about her work. The fear receded, replaced by genuine passion. "These kids are amazing, so resilient, so smart. They just need someone to believe in them, you know? Someone to show up consistently and give a damn." "How long have you been doing it?" "Almost 6 years now. I started as a volunteer while I was finishing my social work degree. They hired me full-time about 4 years ago." Adrian found himself genuinely interested. "What made you want to go into social work?" Elena's smile turned rueful. The classic answer, "I wanted to help people." The real answer? "I grew up in the system, foster care from age 7 to 18. I had some really good caseworkers and some really terrible ones. The good ones changed my life. I wanted to be that for someone else." The casual revelation hit Adrian harder than he expected. He tried to imagine a 7-year-old Elena alone and scared in an unfamiliar system and felt his chest tighten. "That must have been incredibly difficult," he said carefully. "It was what it was," Elena said with a shrug that suggested years of practice at deflecting sympathy. "I survived. Some kids don't. I try to remember that when the job gets hard." "Do you still have contact with your foster families?" "Some of them. I had 5 placements between ages 7 and 18. 2 were okay. 1 was actively bad. The last 2 were actually good, the Hendersons. They wanted to adopt me, but by then I was 16 and stubborn and convinced I didn't need parents. I regret that now, but..." She trailed off. Water under the bridge. Adrian didn't know what to say to that. His own childhood had been stable, even boring. 2 parents who loved each other and their kids, Sunday dinners and family vacations. The biggest trauma of his youth had been getting cut from the JV basketball team sophomore year. "You're close with your sister," Elena observed. "Claire talks about you a lot. She's really proud of you, raising Mia on your own." "Claire's great," Adrian agreed. "I don't know what I'd do without her. When my ex left, Claire was the one who showed up at my apartment with groceries and refused to leave until I'd eaten something. She taught me how to do pigtails when Mia wanted her hair like Elsa from Frozen." Elena smiled. "That's love." "Yeah, it is." They fell into an easier conversation then, trading stories about their lives. Adrian told her about his job as an accountant at a mid-sized manufacturing company, boring but stable, with good health insurance for Mia. Elena shared stories about the kids at the center, the small victories and heartbreaking setbacks. Time passed. Adrian checked his phone. 8:45. Almost an hour since Elena had arrived at his door, terrified and seeking safety. "I should probably try to leave soon," Elena said, though she didn't sound enthusiastic about the prospect. "I can't hide in your apartment forever." "You're not hiding," Adrian corrected gently. "You're being smart. There's a difference." Elena met his eyes. "You really don't think I'm overreacting?" "I think women are told they're overreacting when they express any concern for their own safety. I think that's bullshit. If something felt wrong to you, then something was wrong. Trust that." Elena's eyes glistened suddenly, and she looked away, blinking rapidly. "Sorry, it's just... You have no idea how much I needed to hear that." Adrian felt a surge of anger, not at Elena, but at whatever experiences had made her doubt her own instincts so thoroughly. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Sure." "Earlier, you said you had friends who'd reported things and got nowhere. What happened? Elena was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. My roommate from college, Jess, senior year, she started getting these messages on social media. Nothing overtly threatening, but creepy. Comments about what she was wearing in photos, questions about where she lived, that kind of thing. She blocked the account, but new ones kept popping up. Did she report it? To the police? Yeah. They basically told her to stay off social media if it bothered her so much, like it was her fault for having an online presence. The messages escalated. Someone left a note on her car. She came home one day and could tell someone had been in her apartment. Nothing was taken, but things were moved around, rearranged. Jesus, Adrian breathed. The police said there was no evidence of forced entry, so probably she was just being forgetful. Suggested she was stressed about finals. Elena's voice dripped with sarcasm. Finally, she came home and found the guy actually in her apartment. He'd somehow gotten a key. She called 911 and they arrested him. Turns out he'd been stalking 3 other women too, but it took her actually being in danger before anyone took it seriously. Is she okay now? Physically, yes. Mentally, she moved back home to Montana, doesn't use social media anymore, has serious trust issues. But hey, at least they eventually arrested the guy, right? The bitterness in Elena's voice was palpable. Adrian understood now why she'd been so reluctant to call the police, why she'd apologized for seeming paranoid. The system had taught her that her fear wasn't valid until it was too late. I'm sorry that happened to your friend, he said. And I'm sorry that experience made you doubt yourself tonight. The worst part is, I work with teenagers who go through this stuff all the time. I tell them to trust their instincts, to speak up if something feels wrong. And then when it happens to me, my first instinct is to wonder if I'm being ridiculous. You're not ridiculous. Thank you for saying that. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Adrian glanced toward the window, then at his phone. Do you want me to walk you to your car? He offered. I know you need to leave eventually, but at least you won't be alone. Elena's relief was visible. Would you? I know it's a lot to ask. It's not, Adrian interrupted. Give me 2 seconds to grab my keys and shoes. He stood and moved toward the door where his sneakers sat in a slightly messy pile alongside Mia's tiny light-up shoes. As he bent to tie his laces, his phone buzzed in his pocket. Claire, how's it going? Is she nice? Are you being charming? Don't forget to smile. Adrian typed back quickly. Long story. I'll call you later. His sister's response was immediate. That sounds ominous. Should I be worried? No, just complicated. Mia okay? She's perfect. Currently building a blanket fort and demanding ice cream for dinner. I caved. Don't judge me. Despite everything, Adrian smiled. You're her favorite person in the world. As it should be. Have fun tonight. Don't overthink it. If only she knew. Adrian pocketed his phone and turned back to Elena, who had stood and was gathering her purse. Ready? He asked. She nodded, though he could see the tension creeping back into her shoulders. They moved to the door together. Adrian unlocked it and pulled it open slowly, peering out into the hallway first. Empty. The flickering fluorescent light continued its irregular dance, casting moving shadows that made the corridor feel vaguely unsettling, but there was no one there. Okay, Adrian said quietly. We'll take the stairs down. Stay close to me. They stepped out into the hallway, and Adrian locked his apartment door behind them. Elena stayed at his shoulder as they walked toward the stairwell. The building was quiet at this hour. Most of his neighbors were older, retired folks who went to bed early. The Johnsons in 3B kept to themselves. The Martinez family in 3C had young kids who were probably already asleep. Adrian had lived here for 2 years and barely knew anyone beyond polite hallway greetings. Now, that anonymity felt isolating rather than peaceful. They reached the stairwell door. Adrian pulled it open and peered down into the concrete shaft. The stairs descended in sharp switchbacks, lit by the same unreliable fluorescent tubes as the hallway. I don't see anyone, so, he said. But we'll go down quickly and quietly. If anything feels off, we head straight back up to my apartment. Got it? Elena nodded, her face pale again. They started down. Their footsteps echoed in the enclosed space, impossibly loud. Adrian kept his hand on the railing, his eyes scanning each landing before they descended to it. First landing, clear. Second landing, clear. Halfway between the second and first floor, Adrian heard it, a door opening somewhere below them. He stopped immediately, holding up his hand to signal Elena. She froze behind him. They stood absolutely still, listening. Footsteps. Someone was climbing the stairs toward them. Adrian's mind raced. It could be anyone. Mr. Chen from the first floor coming home late. Someone's visiting friend or family member. A neighbor he'd never met. Or it could be the man who'd followed Elena. The footsteps were steady, unhurried, getting closer. "Back up," Adrian whispered. Slowly. They began moving back up the stairs, trying to keep their movements quiet. Adrian's heart hammered in his chest. This was probably nothing. Probably perfectly innocent, but he couldn't shake the image of Elena's terrified face when she'd first arrived at his door. They reached the second-floor landing just as a figure appeared on the stairs below them. A man. Tall, wearing a dark hoodie that obscured his face. He looked up at them and stopped. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the man spoke. "Evening," he said casually. He continued climbing the stairs toward them. Adrian stepped in front of Elena instinctively, putting himself between her and the approaching figure. "Evening," he responded, keeping his voice neutral. The man reached their landing. Up close, Adrian could see he was probably in his 40s, with a few days' growth of beard and tired eyes. He didn't look particularly threatening, but Adrian had no idea what threatening was supposed to look like. "You live in this building?" the man asked, his tone conversational. "Yeah," Adrian said carefully. "You?" "My sister does. 2D. Just visiting." The man's eyes flicked past Adrian to Elena, lingered for a moment too long, then returned to Adrian's face. "Nice night," he said. Then he continued past them up the stairs toward the second floor. Adrian and Elena stood frozen until they heard a door open and close above them. "Was that him?" Adrian whispered. "I don't know," and Elena whispered back, her voice shaky. "I didn't get a good look at the guy outside." "It could be. Or it could be exactly who he said he is." "Do you know anyone in 2D?" "I've never even been in this building before tonight." Adrian made a decision. "Come on, let's get you to your car. Quickly." They hurried down the remaining stairs, emerged into the first-floor hallway, and pushed through the exterior door into the night. The parking lot looked exactly as it had when Adrian checked from his window earlier. Quiet, nearly empty. The single streetlight cast its inadequate glow across the cracked asphalt. Elena's car was parked in the visitor section, about 50 yards from the building entrance. They walked quickly, Adrian scanning their surroundings with every step. His senses felt heightened, hyper-aware of every shadow, every movement. They reached Elena's car, a silver Honda Civic that had seen better days. She fumbled with her keys, her hands shaking again. "It's okay," Adrian said softly. "Take your time." She managed to unlock the door and pulled it open. Before getting in, she turned to face him. "Thank you," she said, her eyes meeting his. "Not just for walking me down. For everything tonight. For believing me when I showed up at your door terrified. For not making me feel crazy. For—" her voice caught. "For being kind." Adrian felt something shift in his chest. This strange, frightening evening had created an intimacy between them that a normal first date never could have. They'd skipped past the superficial pleasantries and jumped straight into something real. "Text me when you get home," he said, "so I know you're safe." Elena smiled, a real smile this time. "I will." She climbed into her car, and Adrian stepped back as she started the engine. Her headlights flared to life, illuminating the parking lot in harsh white light. As she pulled out of the space and drove toward the exit, Adrian stayed where he was, watching until her taillights disappeared around the corner onto Riverside Avenue. Only then did he turn back toward his building. The parking lot felt different now, emptier, more exposed. Adrian walked quickly back to the entrance, glancing over his shoulder twice. He was probably being paranoid. The man in the stairwell had almost certainly been exactly who he claimed to be. Someone visiting their sister. Almost certainly. Adrian reached the building entrance and pulled the door open. The familiar hallway greeted him with its flickering lights and institutional smell. As he climbed the stairs back to his apartment, Adrian found himself thinking about Elena's friend Jess, about how many times she'd reported feeling unsafe before anyone took her seriously, about how the system had failed her until the threat became undeniable. He thought about the teenage girls Elena worked with, about his own daughter, still small and protected, but who would someday navigate this same world that demanded women be constantly vigilant, yet accused them of paranoia when they actually were. He thought about Elena's face when she'd thanked him for believing her, as if that was something extraordinary rather than basic human decency. By the time Adrian reached his apartment and locked the door behind him, it was 9:15. He moved to the window and looked down at the now empty parking lot. His phone buzzed. Elena. Home safe, doors locked. Thank you again for tonight. Despite everything, I'm glad I met you. Adrian typed back, Me too. Get some rest. We'll talk tomorrow. He set his phone down and sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. The cheese and crackers he'd set out earlier sat untouched on the counter. The wine remained unopened in the refrigerator. The careful preparations he'd made for a normal first date felt like they belonged to a different lifetime. Adrian sat in his quiet apartment, listening to the building settle around him, and realized something important. The evening hadn't gone anything like he'd planned, but Elena had been right about one thing. Despite everything, he was glad they'd met. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a question lingered. Had the man in the parking lot been real? Had the man in the stairwell been innocent? Or was Elena still in danger? Adrian didn't have answers. All he had was a strange certainty that this wasn't over, not by a long shot. Adrian woke the next morning to sunlight streaming through gaps in his curtains and the disorienting feeling that something significant had shifted in his life. For a moment, lying in bed with his eyes still closed, he couldn't quite remember what. Then it came back. Elena. The fear in her eyes, the man in the parking lot, the stranger in the stairwell. He reached for his phone on the nightstand. 7:32. A text from Claire had come in 20 minutes ago. Claire. Mia ate pancakes shaped like dinosaurs and is now convinced she is a dinosaur. Come get your child before she terrorizes the neighborhood. Also, how was last night? Adrian smiled despite his lingering unease. He typed back quickly. On my way in an hour. And it was complicated. Claire. Complicated? That's all you're giving me? I set you up with a beautiful woman and you give me complicated? Adrian. I'll explain when I get there, promise. He hauled himself out of bed and headed for the shower, his mind still circling back to the previous night. In the harsh light of morning, the whole thing felt almost surreal. Had Elena really been followed? Had the man in the stairwell been innocent or something more sinister? By the time Adrian had showered, dressed, and grabbed a quick breakfast, his phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Claire. Elena. Morning. Probably too early to text, but I wanted to say thank you again. I've been thinking about last night. Still can't shake the feeling something was off. Adrian stared at the message for a long moment before responding. Adrian. Not too early at all. I've been thinking about it too. How are you feeling this morning? Elena. Honestly, a little embarrassed. In daylight, the whole thing feels melodramatic. Like maybe I did overreact. Adrian. Stop. You didn't overreact. Something felt wrong to you, and you trusted your gut. That's exactly what you should have done. Elena. You keep saying that. Why? Adrian paused, considering his answer carefully. Adrian. Because I have a daughter. And someday she's going to be a woman navigating a world that isn't always safe. I want her to trust her instincts. I want people to believe her when she says something's wrong. The only way that happens is if we start believing women now. The 3 typing dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, Elena's response came through. Elena. Your daughter is lucky to have you. Adrian. I'm the lucky one. Listen, I need to pick Mia up from my sister's, but can we talk later? Maybe grab coffee this week? Elena. I'd like that. Adrian pocketed his phone and grabbed his keys, feeling something warm and unfamiliar in his chest. Despite the strangeness of their first meeting, he wanted to see Elena again, wanted to know more about her, wanted to continue the conversation they'd started between moments of fear. Claire lived 15 minutes away in a modest house she'd bought 3 years ago with her husband Marcus. By the time Adrian pulled into their driveway, he could hear Mia's delighted shrieks coming from the backyard. Claire met him at the door, her expression hovering somewhere between curiosity and concern. Okay, she said without preamble. What happened? And don't you dare tell me nothing, because I know that face. That's your something happened face. Adrian sighed. Can I at least come inside first? No. Marcus has Mia occupied in the backyard. You have exactly 5 minutes to tell me why you're being weird about Elena before your daughter remembers you exist and demands your attention. Despite everything, Adrian had to laugh. His sister knew him too well. She showed up terrified, he said quietly. Said someone followed her from the parking lot to my building. She was genuinely scared, Claire, shaking, pale, the whole thing. Claire's playful expression vanished instantly. Are you serious? Is she okay? I think so. I let her stay in my apartment until she felt safer, then walked her to her car. She texted when she got home. Did you see anyone, the person who followed her? No, but there was a man in the stairwell when we were leaving. Could have been nothing. Could have been something. We have no way to know. Claire studied his face carefully. But you believed her. Of course I believed her. Good. Claire reached out and squeezed his arm. That matters more than you know. Are you going to see her again? Maybe. We're supposed to get coffee this week. Adrian Cole voluntarily making plans with a woman. Mark this day on the calendar. Claire's teasing tone was back, but her eyes remained serious. Just be careful, okay? If someone really was following her, that's not a small thing. I know. Mia's voice rang out from the backyard. Daddy! Daddy, I can roar like a T-Rex now. Come see. Adrian grinned. That's my cue. Go. Be roared at. But text me later. I want details. The rest of the weekend passed in the comfortable rhythm Adrian had come to know well. Saturday afternoon at the park with Mia, her small hand tucked in his as she pointed out dogs and interesting clouds. Sunday morning cartoons followed by an attempt at making homemade pizza that ended with more flour on the floor than in the dough. But underneath the normalcy, Adrian found his thoughts drifting back to Elena. They texted sporadically throughout the weekend. Nothing deep, just casual check-ins that felt surprisingly natural. She sent him a photo of a mural the kids at the youth center had painted. He sent her a picture of Mia's pizza creation, which looked more like an abstract art project than food. Elena, is that supposed to be pizza? Adrian, she insists it's a pizza dinosaur. Who am I to argue with artistic vision? Elena, fair point. Did you actually eat it? Adrian, every bite, while making very convincing "this is delicious" faces. Elena, you're a good dad. Adrian, I'm a dad who owns stock in antacids, but thanks. By Monday morning, Adrian had almost convinced himself that Friday night had been an isolated incident. Probably just someone walking the same direction. Coincidence rather than malice. Then his phone rang during his lunch break. Adrian? Elena's voice sounded tight, strained. I need to tell you something. He straightened in his desk chair, suddenly alert. What's wrong? I think I saw him again. Adrian's stomach dropped. The man from Friday? I don't know. Maybe. I was leaving the youth center this morning, walking to my car, and there was someone across the street, just standing there, watching. When I looked directly at him, he turned and walked away. Did you get a good look at him? Not really. Same as before, average height, dark clothing. But Adrian, it felt the same. That same awareness of being watched. That same sick feeling in my stomach. Where are you now? Still at the center. I came back inside. I'm probably being paranoid again. Stop saying that, Adrian interrupted firmly. You're not paranoid. Where exactly is this place? I'm coming over. Adrian, you're at work. You can't just leave. The hell I can't. I'm an accountant, Elena. The spreadsheets will survive without me for an hour. What's the address? She hesitated, then gave him the address. You really don't have to do this. I know I don't have to. I want to. Stay inside until I get there. Adrian hung up and grabbed his jacket. His supervisor, Tom, looked up from his desk with raised eyebrows. Everything okay? Family emergency, Adrian said, which wasn't entirely a lie. I need to take a personal hour. Sure, no problem. Hope everything's all right. The youth center was located in a part of town that had clearly seen better days. The building itself was well maintained, a converted warehouse with fresh paint and colorful murals decorating the exterior, but the surrounding neighborhood showed signs of urban decay. Boarded-up storefronts, cracked sidewalks, chain-link fences protecting empty lots. Adrian parked in the small lot behind the building and texted Elena. Adrian, I'm here. Parking lot behind the building. She appeared a minute later, emerging from a back door marked staff only. In daylight, without the fear shadowing her features, she was even prettier than Adrian remembered. She wore jeans and a burgundy sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, but her eyes were still worried. "Thank you for coming," she said as she reached his car. "I feel ridiculous for calling you." "Don't." Adrian climbed out and looked around the parking lot. "Show me where you saw him." Elena led him around to the front of the building and pointed across the street. "There, near that bus stop. He was just standing there, facing this direction." Adrian studied the location. It was a public bus stop with a small shelter. Perfectly innocent place for someone to stand, but it also had a clear sight line to the youth center's entrance. "How long was he there?" "I don't know. I noticed him when I came out, maybe 30 seconds before I decided to come back inside. He could have been there longer." "And when you looked at him directly, he left?" "Walked away, yeah. Didn't run. Just turned and headed down the street like he'd been waiting for a bus and changed his mind." Adrian pulled out his phone and took a photo of the bus stop and the surrounding area. "I'm probably overstepping here, but I think you should file a police report. 2 incidents, even without concrete proof, establishes a pattern." Elena wrapped her arms around herself despite the mild weather. "And say what? Someone stood at a bus stop near my work? They'll think I'm delusional. Maybe, but there'll be a record. If something else happens, I'll already be in danger." Elena's voice cracked slightly. "This is how it works, Adrian. I've seen it a dozen times with the girls I work with. Nobody takes it seriously until something terrible happens, until there's visible bruises or a break-in or worse. By then it's too late to prevent anything. You're just documenting the damage." The bitterness in her voice was sharp enough to cut. Adrian wanted to argue, to insist the system worked better than that, but he couldn't. She was right. He knew she was right. "Okay," he said instead, "then we do this differently. You start documenting everything yourself. Every time you see someone who might be the same person, write down the time, place, what they were wearing, what they did. Take photos if you can do it safely. Build your own evidence." "To show who?" "I don't know yet, but if we need it, we'll have it." Elena studied his face for a long moment. "Why are you doing this? You barely know me." "Because someone should," Adrian said simply. "Because you shouldn't have to deal with this alone. Because—" He paused, searching for the right words. "Because if this were happening to my sister, or one day to my daughter, I'd want someone to take it seriously." Elena's eyes glistened, but she blinked the tears back fiercely. "Okay, I'll start documenting. But Adrian, you can't keep running over here every time I get spooked. You have a job, a daughter, a life." "Let me worry about that." A car pulled into the parking lot, and they both tensed instinctively. But it was just a woman in her 50s who waved at Elena cheerfully. "That's Diane," Elena explained. "She runs the art program. I should get back inside. We have kids arriving in an hour. Will you be okay here?" "It's fine. We're never alone in the building, and the kids are around all afternoon. It's just coming and going that feels vulnerable." Adrian had an idea. "What time do you get off work?" "Usually around 6, sometimes later if we have evening programs." "I'll come back at 6. Walk you to your car." "Adrian, I'm not asking Elena. I'm telling you. 6 o'clock. I'll be here." For a moment, he thought she might argue. Then her shoulders sagged slightly in what looked like relief. "Okay, thank you." Adrian watched her walk back into the building, then stood in the parking lot for another few minutes, studying the street. Traffic was light. A few pedestrians passed by. Everything looked completely normal. But normal didn't mean safe. He climbed back into his car and sat for a moment before starting the engine. His phone showed 6 missed texts from Claire and 1 from his supervisor. He'd deal with those later. Right now, all Adrian could think about was the fear in Elena's voice when she'd called. The way she'd automatically assumed no one would believe her. The casual acceptance that she'd have to wait until something terrible happened before anyone took action. Something hard and protective had crystallized in Adrian's chest. He didn't fully understand it yet, this fierce determination to help someone he'd known for less than 3 days. But it felt important, real. He checked the time. 1:15. He needed to get back to the office, pretend to care about quarterly reports and budget projections for a few hours. But at 6 o'clock, he'd be back. The afternoon crawled by with painful slowness. Adrian tried to focus on work, but his mind kept drifting. He found himself checking his phone obsessively, waiting for another text from Elena saying she'd seen the man again. None came. At 5:30, Adrian shut down his computer and grabbed his jacket. "Heading out early?" Tom asked. "Making up for the personal hour," Adrian lied smoothly. "I'll log in from home later and finish the Richardson file." "No rush. Tomorrow's fine." The drive to the youth center took 25 minutes in evening traffic. Adrian arrived at 5:58 and parked in the same spot as earlier. The parking lot was busier now, with several cars that hadn't been there before, parents picking up their kids, probably. Adrian texted Elena. "I'm here, Elena. Just finishing up. Be out in 5. He watched families exit the building, teenagers laughing together, a mother holding the hand of a small boy who was talking animatedly about something. The scene was so normal, so wholesome, that Adrian felt his earlier paranoia start to recede. Maybe he was overreacting. Maybe Elena's fears were coloring his own perception. Maybe... Elena emerged from the building, and Adrian's thoughts stopped. She was with another woman, someone closer to 60 with gray-streaked hair and a warm smile. They were talking as they walked, but Elena's eyes were scanning the parking lot and street with unmistakable vigilance. Adrian got out of his car. Elena's face brightened when she saw him. She said something to the older woman, who looked over at Adrian with frank curiosity. "Adrian, this is Diane," Elena said as they approached. "Diane, this is my friend Adrian." "Friend." The word settled warmly in Adrian's chest. "Nice to meet you," Diane said, extending her hand. Her grip was firm, her eyes sharp and assessing. "Elena tells me you're keeping an eye out for her." "Just making sure she gets to her car safely," Adrian said. "Good man." Diane turned back to Elena. "I'm parked over there. You've got my number if you need anything, sweetheart." "Thanks, Diane." They watched the older woman walk to a battered station wagon and drive away. Then Elena turned to Adrian. "You didn't have to come back." "I know. But you did anyway." "I did." Elena smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I didn't see him again. All afternoon. Nothing. I'm starting to think I imagined the whole thing." "Or he saw me here at lunch and decided to back off," Adrian countered. "Which would mean you didn't imagine anything. It would mean he's real and aware enough to avoid being seen." Elena's smile faded. "That's not comforting." "It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be realistic. Come on, I'll follow you home. Make sure no one tails you." "Adrian, that's crazy. You live on the other side of town." "So I'll add 20 minutes to my drive. Mia's with Claire until 7 anyway." Elena looked like she wanted to argue, but the relief on her face betrayed her. "Okay, thank you." Her car was parked in the same lot where Adrian had parked. He waited while she unlocked it and started the engine, then followed her out onto the street. Elena lived in a small apartment complex about 15 minutes from the youth center. Adrian stayed 2 car lengths behind her the entire way, watching for any vehicle that might be following the same route. Nothing stood out. When Elena pulled into her complex's parking lot, Adrian followed. She parked in a covered spot marked with her apartment number, and Adrian pulled up beside her. They both got out. "All clear," Adrian said. "Nobody followed us." "I noticed." Elena leaned against her car, looking exhausted. "Maybe I really am just being paranoid. Maybe there is no man. Maybe I'm creating danger where there isn't any. Or maybe he's smart enough to know when to back off." Adrian walked closer, keeping his voice gentle. "Elena, I need you to hear me. Even if you never see this guy again, even if nothing else happens, you weren't wrong to be scared. You trusted your instincts. That's not paranoia. That's survival." "Everyone keeps telling me to trust my instincts," Elena said quietly. "But what if my instincts are broken? What if I'm just so used to being on alert that I see threats everywhere?" "Are you?" "Am I what?" "Seeing threats everywhere. Do you walk around constantly afraid? Do you avoid leaving your house? Do you assume every man you pass is dangerous?" Elena considered this. "No. I live my life. I go to work. I meet friends for dinner. I run errands. I'm not hiding." "Then your instincts aren't broken. They're calibrated, and right now they're telling you something's wrong. Listen to them." Elena's eyes met his, and something passed between them. Understanding, maybe, or trust. "You're a good person, Adrian Cole." "I'm really not." I'm just doing what should be normal. That's what makes you good. You don't see it as exceptional. They stood in the parking lot as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Around them, the complex was quiet. A few lights flickered on in windows. Someone's wind chimes tinkled in the evening breeze. "Can I ask you something?" Elena said suddenly. "Sure." "What happened with your ex-wife? You said she left when Mia was 2. Adrian hadn't expected the question, but he didn't mind answering. She decided motherhood wasn't for her, decided marriage wasn't for her, decided I wasn't for her, so she left. Moved to San Diego with a guy she met online, sends birthday cards sometimes, calls maybe 4 times a year. Mia doesn't really remember her." That must have been devastating. It was, at first. Now it's just reality. Mia and I are a team. We figured it out. "Do you ever hear from her, your ex?" "Occasionally, usually when she needs something, money, or for me to sign some paperwork. We're cordial, distant, like acquaintances rather than people who once promised to spend their lives together." "Do you resent her?" Adrian thought about this carefully. "I used to. Not anymore. She did us a favor, honestly. Better to leave than to stay and be miserable. Better for Mia to have one parent who's all in than 2 parents stuck in a broken relationship." Elena nodded slowly. "That's mature of you." "It's survival. Resentment takes energy I need for Mia." They fell into comfortable silence. Adrian checked his phone. 6:45. "I should go," he said. "Need to pick up Mia." "Of course. Thank you for following me home. And for showing up at lunch. And for—" Elena trailed off, gesturing helplessly. "Everything. Stop thanking me." "I'll stop thanking you when you stop being worth thanking." Adrian laughed. "How about that coffee this week? Somewhere public, well-lit, completely non-threatening." "I'd like that. Are you free Wednesday evening? There's a place near the youth center. Great coffee. Always crowded. Very safe." "Wednesday works. 6:30? Perfect." Adrian climbed back into his car and Elena waved as he pulled out of the parking lot. In his rearview mirror, he watched her walk toward her building, keys already in hand, moving quickly but not frantically. The drive to Claire's house gave Adrian time to think. Something was happening between him and Elena. Something that had started with fear but was evolving into something else. Friendship, certainly. But maybe something more. He'd been alone for so long, focused entirely on being Mia's father, that he'd forgotten what it felt like to connect with someone, to care about someone outside his small circle of family. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Claire met him at the door with Mia already in her jacket, a stuffed dinosaur clutched in one hand. "Daddy! Aunt Claire taught me how to make friendship bracelets. Look!" Mia thrust her wrist forward, showing off a lumpy creation made of rainbow yarn. "That's beautiful, sweetheart." Adrian scooped her up, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. "Did you have fun? So much fun. Can I sleep here tomorrow too?" "Not tomorrow, but soon." Claire walked them to the car, her expression knowing. "You saw Elena again. Just made sure she got home safe." "Mm-hmm. And when's the next time you're just making sure?" "Wednesday. Coffee." Claire grinned. "Progress. I approve. I haven't asked for your approval. I'm giving it anyway. She's good for you, Adrian. I can tell." "It's been 3 days, Claire." Sometimes 3 days is all it takes to know something matters. Adrian settled Mia into her car seat, then hugged his sister goodbye. "Thanks for watching her." "Anytime." "And Adrian? Be careful, okay? With Elena and this whole situation, if someone really is following her, I know. Do you? Because you're already pretty invested in someone you just met. I'm happy about the connection, but I'm worried about the circumstances." "So am I," Adrian admitted. "But what am I supposed to do? Ignore it? Tell her to deal with it alone?" "No. But don't lose yourself in someone else's crisis either. You have Mia to think about." "I'm always thinking about Mia." "I know you are." Claire squeezed his arm. "Just remember that you can't save everyone." "I'm not trying to save anyone. I'm just trying to help." Sometimes those are the same thing. The drive home was quiet. Mia chattered about her day for a few minutes, then dozed off with her dinosaur tucked under her chin. Adrian drove on autopilot, his mind churning. Was Claire right, Was he getting too involved too quickly with someone he barely knew? Maybe. But every time he thought about backing off, he remembered Elena's face when she'd thanked him for believing her. That desperate gratitude for something that should have been basic decency. How many times had she been dismissed? How many times had people implied she was overreacting or seeking attention? How many small fears had accumulated until she'd learned to doubt her own instincts? Adrian couldn't fix any of that, but he could choose to believe her now. He could choose to show up. He could choose to be someone safe in a world that too often wasn't. That night, after Mia was asleep, Adrian sat on his couch and opened his laptop. He typed "how to know if you're being stalked" into the search bar. The results were sobering. Article after article describing patterns of behavior. Being followed, repeated sightings of the same person in different locations, the feeling of being watched, unexplained changes in routine encounters. One article, from a domestic violence prevention website, included a checklist. Adrian read through it, his stomach tightening with each point that matched Elena's experience. His phone buzzed. Elena. Elena. I know it's late, but I wanted to say thank you again. Having someone believe me means more than you know. Adrian stared at the message for a long moment, then typed his response. Adrian, I'll always believe you, and if you ever feel unsafe, day or night, you call me. Promise? Elena, I can't ask you to do that. Adrian, you're not asking, I'm offering. Promise me. The three dots appeared and disappeared several times before her response came through. Elena, I promise. Thank you. Adrian, get some sleep. I'll see you Wednesday. Adrian set his phone down and closed his laptop. Through the thin walls of his apartment, he could hear Mrs. Martinez next door watching a game show, the studio audience's laughter filtering through. Everything felt normal, safe, ordinary. But Adrian couldn't shake the feeling that something darker was lurking just outside the circle of light, something patient and deliberate that knew how to wait. And he wondered, not for the first time, what he'd gotten himself into by opening his door to a frightened stranger 3 days ago. Wednesday arrived with unseasonable warmth, the kind of autumn day that felt borrowed from summer. Adrian spent the morning distracted at work, running numbers that refused to add up correctly because his mind kept wandering to the evening ahead. At lunch, his phone rang. Claire's name flashed on the screen. Let me guess, Adrian said by way of greeting. You're calling to give me unsolicited dating advice. I'm calling to remind you that I can pick up Mia from daycare and keep her for dinner, Claire corrected. Which, yes, happens to facilitate your date, but is primarily motivated by my desire to spoil my niece with chicken nuggets shaped like stars. You're a saint. I know. Also, Marcus wants to know if you're planning to actually make a move this time, or if you're going to spend another evening being aggressively platonic. Adrian could hear his brother-in-law laughing in the background. Tell Marcus to mind his own business, Adrian said, though he was smiling. He says you're hopeless, and he's praying for your game. My game is fine. Your game is non-existent. You haven't been on a real date in 4 years. This isn't a real date. We're just getting coffee. At 6:30 in the evening, after you've already followed her home twice and appointed yourself her personal security detail. That's not just coffee, Adrian. That's a relationship forming. Adrian opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. She wasn't wrong. Just be yourself, Claire continued, her tone softening. Stop overthinking it. Elena already likes you. That much is obvious. Just let things happen naturally. What if I've forgotten how to do this? You haven't. And even if you have, she seems patient enough to remind you. After they hung up, Adrian sat at his desk, staring at spreadsheets he couldn't focus on. Claire was right about one thing. Whatever was developing between him and Elena had moved past casual acquaintance territory. But it had started under such strange circumstances that Adrian couldn't quite define what it was becoming. The afternoon crawled by with excruciating slowness. At 5:45, Adrian shut down his computer and headed out, ignoring Tom's knowing smirk. The coffee shop Elena had suggested was called The Grindstone, a converted brick building with large windows and mismatched furniture that screamed local establishment. Adrian arrived 10 minutes early and snagged a table near the window where he could watch the door. The place was crowded, just as Elena had promised. Students hunched over laptops. A book club gathered in one corner, their animated discussion about some novel Adrian had never heard of filling the air. The baristas worked with practiced efficiency, calling out complicated drink orders. Elena arrived at exactly 6:30, and Adrian felt something in his chest tighten when he saw her. She'd changed since work, traded her usual practical clothes for dark jeans and a forest green sweater that brought out the color in her eyes. Her hair was down, falling in waves past her shoulders. She spotted him immediately and smiled, weaving through the crowded shop to reach his table. "Sorry I'm not earlier," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. "There was a situation at the center. One of our kids got into a fight with another student. Had to sort it out." "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just teenage drama masquerading as the end of the world." Elena set her purse down and glanced toward the counter. "I desperately need caffeine. Want anything?" "I'll get it," Adrian said, standing. "What do you drink?" "Vanilla latte, extra shot, and thank you." Adrian made his way to the counter, ordered Elena's latte and a black coffee for himself, and returned to find Elena watching the street through the window with that same vigilant expression he'd seen before. "See anything?" he asked gently. She startled slightly, then shook her head. "No, just a habit now. I can't seem to turn it off." "Has anything else happened since Monday?" "Nothing. Absolutely nothing, which should make me feel better, but somehow makes me more nervous, like waiting for the other shoe to drop." Their drinks arrived, delivered by a barista with purple hair and a nose ring. Adrian wrapped his hands around his mug, grateful for something to do with them. "Tell me about the fight at the center," he said, deliberately steering the conversation away from fear. "What was it about?" Elena's expression lightened. Two 15-year-old boys, both interested in the same girl, tale as old as time. One of them made a comment, the other shoved him. Things escalated. We got them separated before anyone got hurt. "How'd you handle it?" "Made them sit down and actually talk to each other. Turns out the girl in question isn't interested in either of them, which they would have known if they'd bothered asking her instead of treating her like a prize to be won." Elena took a sip of her latte and sighed contentedly. "We had a long conversation about respecting women's agency. I don't think it fully sank in, but maybe planted a seed. That's all you can do sometimes. Plant seeds and hope they grow." "Exactly. What about you? How's Mia?" Adrian smiled automatically at his daughter's name. "Currently with my sister, probably eating her body weight in chicken nuggets and watching cartoons I don't approve of. She's convinced she's going to be a paleontologist when she grows up. That's specific for a 5-year-old. Last week she wanted to be a princess astronaut. The week before that, a veterinarian who only treats dragons. Mia's career aspirations are fluid." Elena laughed, a genuine sound that made something warm bloom in Adrian's chest. "She sounds amazing." "She is. She's everything." Adrian paused, then added quietly, "Sometimes I worry it's too much pressure, being her whole world. Like I'm not enough." "You're raising a happy, imaginative, curious kid on your own. You're more than enough." "How do you know she's happy? You've never met her." "Because when you talk about her, your whole face changes. That doesn't come from obligation. That comes from love. And kids can tell the difference." They fell into easy conversation after that, talking about everything and nothing. Elena told him about growing up in the foster system, about the Henderson family who'd wanted to adopt her, about the caseworker named Ruth, who'd been the first person to really see her. Ruth used to say, "Your circumstances don't define you. Your choices do," Elena said. "She's the reason I went into social work. I wanted to be Ruth for someone else." "Are you still in touch with her?" "She died 6 years ago. Cancer. I was finishing my degree when it happened." Elena's voice grew soft. "I visited her in the hospital near the end. She told me she was proud of me. That was the last conversation we had." "I'm sorry." "Me too. But I carry her with me, in the work I do, in how I treat the kids, in remembering that sometimes one person believing in you is enough to change everything." Adrian thought about his own life, about the stable foundation he'd taken for granted, 2 parents who'd loved each other, a sister who'd always had his back, the privilege of never questioning whether he mattered. "You're one of the strongest people I've ever met," he said. Elena looked surprised. "I don't feel strong. Most days I feel like I'm barely holding it together." That's what strength looks like. Not the absence of fear or struggle, but showing up anyway. They talked until their coffee grew cold, until the book club dispersed and new customers cycled through. Adrian learned that Elena was terrible at cooking but excellent at baking, that she'd never been outside the state but dreamed of visiting Montana to see Ruth's hometown, that she volunteered at an animal shelter on weekends because teenagers are exhausting and dogs are simple. He told her about his failed college baseball career, about the moment he'd held Mia for the first time and felt his entire life reorganize itself around her existence, about his complicated relationship with his ex-wife that had settled into polite distance. Somewhere around 8 o'clock, Elena's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her expression shifted immediately. "What's wrong?" Adrian asked. Elena turned her phone so he could see the screen. A text from an unknown number. "Unknown. Nice sweater. Green suits you." Adrian felt ice slide down his spine. "When did you get this?" "Just now." Elena's hands were shaking slightly. "Adrian, I'm wearing this sweater right now. Whoever sent this can see me." Adrian's eyes snapped to the window. The street outside was busy with evening foot traffic, people walking dogs, couples heading to dinner, a man standing near a streetlight across the road, his face shadowed. "Don't react," Adrian said quietly. "Don't look around. Just keep talking to me like nothing's wrong." "How can I do that when someone is watching me right now?" "Because if you panic, they win. If you show fear, you give them power." Adrian kept his voice calm despite his racing heart. "I'm going to stand up and go to the counter like I'm ordering another drink. While I'm there, I'll get a better view of the street. You stay here and forward that message to yourself so we have a record of the number." Elena nodded, her face pale but determined. Adrian rose casually and walked to the counter. From this angle, he had a clear view through the front window. The man near the streetlight was still there, but as Adrian watched, he pulled out a phone and appeared to make a call. It could be innocent, or it could be their stalker. Adrian ordered another coffee he didn't want, paid, and returned to the table. "Guy across the street, gray jacket, near the streetlight. Can you see him without being obvious?" Elena shifted slightly, her eyes flicking toward the window. "I see him." "Is that the man from before?" "I don't know, maybe. The build is similar, but I still haven't gotten a good look at anyone's face." The man across the street pocketed his phone and walked away, disappearing into the evening crowd. Elena's phone buzzed again. "Unknown. You look worried." "Don't be. I just want to talk." "This is escalating," Adrian said. "We need to take this to the police, now. This isn't just paranoia anymore. This is concrete evidence of harassment." "And say what? Someone texted me compliments? They'll tell me to block the number." "They texted you about what you're wearing in real time. That's not a compliment. That's surveillance." Elena's jaw tightened. "You're right. Okay. Let's go to the police." They left the grindstone together, Adrian keeping himself between Elena and the street. His car was parked 2 blocks away in a public lot. They walked quickly, both hyper-aware of every person they passed. The police station was a 15-minute drive across town. Adrian drove while Elena sat in the passenger seat, clutching her phone and staring out the window. "Do you think he followed us here?" she asked quietly. "I don't know. Maybe he was already here. Maybe he's been following you for longer than we realized." "That's a terrifying thought." "I know." The station was a squat brick building that looked like it had been built in the 70s and hadn't been updated since. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the waiting area smelled like old coffee and industrial cleaner. A tired-looking officer sat behind a plexiglass partition. "Can I help you?" "I need to file a harassment report," Elena said, her voice steadier than Adrian expected. The officer slid a clipboard through the gap in the partition. "Fill this out. Someone will be with you shortly." Shortly turned out to be 45 minutes. They sat in uncomfortable plastic chairs while other people cycled through. A woman reporting a stolen bike, a man arguing about a parking ticket, someone asking for directions to the courthouse. Finally, a detective emerged from a back hallway. She was in her late 40s with sharp eyes and graying hair pulled back in a tight bun. "Elena Brooks?" she called. They stood together. The detective's eyes flicked to Adrian. "And you are?" "Adrian Cole. I'm with her." "Boyfriend?" "Friend," Elena said quickly. The detective gestured for them to follow. She led them to a small interview room with a table, 3 chairs, and a mirror that was probably one-way glass. It felt like every police procedural Adrian had ever watched. "I'm Detective Sarah Martinez," the woman said, settling into a chair and pulling out a notepad. "Tell me what's going on." Elena explained everything. The man in the parking lot on Friday, the figure outside the youth center on Monday, the text tonight. She showed Martinez her phone, scrolling through the messages. The detective took notes, her expression neutral. "And you don't recognize this number?" "No, I've never seen it before." "Did you respond to these messages?" "No, I didn't know what to say." Martinez nodded. "Good. Don't engage. Any response gives them what they want, your attention." She looked up at Elena. "I'm going to be straight with you, Ms. Brooks. This is concerning, but it's also borderline. We can't arrest someone for standing in public spaces or sending creepy texts." "So what can you do?" Adrian asked, unable to keep the frustration from his voice. "I can file this report, which creates an official record. I can have officers increase patrols around Ms. Brooks' apartment and workplace. If this person contacts her again, or if she sees him following her, she should call 911 immediately." Martinez's expression softened slightly. "I know this isn't the answer you want, but unless he makes an explicit threat or we can prove he's stalking you, my hands are tied." "So I have to wait until I'm in actual danger before anyone helps me," Elena said flatly. "I didn't say that. What I'm saying is we need more evidence. Document everything. Times, places, descriptions. Take photos if you can do so safely. Install security cameras at your apartment if possible. The more you can show a pattern of behavior, the stronger case we have." Elena looked defeated. "Okay. Thank you for your time, Detective." They left the station 20 minutes later with a case number and a pamphlet about personal safety that felt insultingly inadequate. The night had grown cooler, and Elena wrapped her arms around herself. "That was pointless," she said. "It wasn't pointless. You have an official report now. That matters." "Does it? Because I still feel exactly as unsafe as I did an hour ago." Adrian didn't have an answer to that. They drove back to the grindstone in silence so Elena could get her car. The coffee shop was closing up, chairs being stacked on tables visible through the windows. Adrian parked next to Elena's Honda and killed the engine. For a moment, neither of them moved. "I don't want to go home alone tonight," Elena admitted quietly. "I know that sounds pathetic." "It doesn't sound pathetic. It sounds human. I just keep thinking about him watching me. Knowing what I'm wearing, knowing where I am, it makes my skin crawl." Adrian made a decision. "Do you trust me?" "Yes." "Then come stay at my place tonight. The couch pulls out. You'll be safe there, and you won't be alone." Elena turned to look at him, surprise and relief warring on her face. "Are you sure? What about Mia?" "She's at Claire's until tomorrow morning. It's just me. And I promise I'll keep my distance. This isn't me trying anything. This is me making sure you feel safe." "I know it is. That's why I trust you." Elena took a shaky breath. "Okay?" "Yes. Thank you." They drove in separate cars back to Adrian's apartment, and he found himself checking his rearview mirror obsessively, looking for headlights that stayed too constant, cars that made the same turns. Nothing stood out. At the building, Adrian walked Elena from her car to the entrance, then up the stairs to his apartment. Once inside with the door locked, some of the tension seemed to drain from her shoulders. "Make yourself comfortable," Adrian said, gesturing to the living room. "I'll grab some blankets and get the couch set up." While he pulled sheets and a comforter from the hall closet, Elena stood at the window, peering down at the parking lot. "I don't see anyone," she said. "Good, but we're keeping the curtains closed anyway." Adrian made up the couch while Elena explored his small apartment. She paused at the refrigerator where Mia's artwork was displayed with an excessive number of magnets. "She's talented," Elena said, studying a crayon drawing of what might have been a family. 2 stick figures, one big and one small, holding hands under a smiling sun. "She's 5. Everything looks like abstract expressionism at that age." "No, I mean it. Look at the detail in this one. She drew individual fingers on the hands. Most kids that age just do mittens." Adrian looked at the drawing with fresh eyes. Elena was right. Mia had carefully drawn 5 fingers on each hand, even if they were slightly wonky. "I never noticed that," he admitted. "That's because you see them every day. Familiarity breeds blindness to the extraordinary." They stood together in the kitchen, looking at a 5-year-old's artwork, and Adrian felt the strangeness of the evening crystallize into something almost normal. Elena fit here, in his space, in a way that felt both surprising and natural. "Are you hungry?" he asked. "I could make something, or order something. I'm not much of a cook, but I can manage pasta or—" "I'm okay. Too wound up to eat, honestly." "Tea, then? I think I have chamomile somewhere." "That would be nice." Adrian put the kettle on while Elena settled onto the couch. When the tea was ready, he brought 2 mugs to the living room and sat in the armchair across from her, maintaining the distance he'd promised. "Thank you for this," Elena said. "For all of this. I know I keep saying it, and I keep telling you to stop. You don't owe me gratitude for basic decency." "It's not basic, though. Not really. Most people would have been done after the first night. Told me to call the police and left it at that. Most people are missing out then, because getting to know you has been the best thing to happen to me in a long time." The words hung in the air between them, more honest than Adrian had intended. Elena's eyes widened slightly. "Really? Really? These past few days, talking to you, learning about you, it's reminded me that there's more to life than just work and parenting. Don't get me wrong, I love being me as dad, but I'd forgotten how to be just Adrian. You've reminded me." Elena set down her mug and stood. For a moment, Adrian thought she might leave, that he'd said too much, pushed too far. Instead, she crossed to his chair and bent down, wrapping her arms around him in a hug that felt both desperate and grateful. Adrian froze for a second, then hugged her back, feeling the tremor in her shoulders, the way she held on like he was an anchor in a storm. "Thank you," she whispered against his shoulder. "Not for tonight. Not for believing me. Thank you for reminding me that good people still exist." They stayed like that for a long moment before Elena pulled back, wiping at her eyes. "Sorry, I'm a mess." "You're human. There's a difference." She returned to the couch, and they talked late into the night. About everything and nothing. About dreams and fears and the strange paths that lead people to each other. Somewhere around midnight, Elena's phone buzzed again. They both tensed. She looked at the screen and her face went pale. Unknown. "Sleep well, Elena. Sweet dreams." Adrian felt rage flare hot in his chest. He knows you're not home. He's watching your apartment. Or he just assumes I'm home and is being creepy. Either way, you're staying here until we figure this out. Elena didn't argue. She just nodded, clutching her phone like it might bite her. "I'm going to call Detective Martinez in the morning," Adrian said. "Show her these new messages. They're escalating, and that matters." "Okay." They sat in silence for a while after that, the weight of the situation pressing down on them. Finally, Adrian stood. "You should try to get some sleep. Tomorrow we figure out next steps. But tonight, you're safe here, I promise." Elena looked up at him with eyes that held both fear and trust. "I believe you." Adrian went to his bedroom but left the door open, hyper-aware of every sound in the apartment. He could hear Elena moving around in the living room, settling onto the couch, the rustle of blankets. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his mind racing. Someone out there was watching Elena, following her, texting her, making her afraid. And Adrian had no idea how to stop it. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He wasn't going to let her face this alone. Whatever came next, whatever they had to do to keep her safe, he was in this. Because sometime in the past 5 days, Elena Brooks had become more than just a stranger who'd knocked on his door. She'd become someone who mattered. And Adrian protected the people who mattered. Adrian woke to the sound of movement in his kitchen. For a disoriented moment, he couldn't remember why someone else was in his apartment. Then it all came rushing back. Elena, the texts, the late-night promise of safety. He checked his phone. 6:47. Early, but he could hear water running, the quiet clink of dishes. When he emerged from his bedroom, still in the t-shirt and sweatpants he'd slept in, Elena was standing at his sink rinsing out a coffee mug. She changed back into yesterday's clothes, her hair pulled up in a messy bun. "Morning," Adrian said softly, not wanting to startle her. She turned, offering a small smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Morning. I hope you don't mind. I made coffee. Figured out your machine through trial and error." "Mind? You're a miracle worker. I'm useless before caffeine." Adrian moved to pour himself a cup, breathing in the rich aroma. "How'd you sleep?" Better than I expected, honestly. Your couch is surprisingly comfortable. It should be. Cost me 3 months' worth of guilt about spending money on furniture instead of Mia's college fund. Elena's smile became more genuine. Practical dad guilt, classic. They stood in the kitchen together, sipping coffee as morning light filtered through the curtains. It felt domestic and strange and surprisingly comfortable all at once. I need to pick up Mia from Claire's by 9, Adrian said. But I was thinking maybe we should stop by your apartment first. Let you grab some clothes, toiletries. You could stay here a few more days until we figure out what's happening. Elena's hands tightened around her mug. Adrian, I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking, I'm offering. And before you argue, think practically. Your apartment might be compromised. This guy knows where you live, maybe even has eyes on the building. Here, you're anonymous. He doesn't know about me or this address. What about Mia? I can't bring my stalker situation into her life. You won't be. We'll be careful. And honestly, having you here might be safer for everyone. Strength in numbers. Elena studied his face, searching for something. Why are you doing this? Really? Adrian set down his coffee cup, meeting her eyes directly. Because when my ex-wife left, I spent 6 months feeling like I was drowning. Claire showed up every single day, brought groceries, watched Mia, sat with me when the nights got too quiet. She didn't have to. I told her I was fine, that I could handle it, but she showed up anyway. He paused. Someone showed up for me when I needed it. Now I'm showing up for you. Elena's eyes glistened, but she blinked the tears back. Okay. Yes. Thank you. They drove to Elena's apartment in Adrian's car, leaving hers safely parked at his building. The morning traffic was light, and they made good time across town. Elena's complex looked different in daylight, less ominous, more tired. Peeling paint on the exterior, overgrown landscaping, a playground with rusty equipment. Home sweet home, Elena said dryly as they pulled into the parking lot. Her apartment was on the second floor, number 2G. As they climbed the exterior stairs, Adrian found himself scanning the area with the same vigilance he'd developed over the past week. Other residents were leaving for work. A maintenance worker carried a toolbox toward the pool area. Everything looked normal. Everything felt wrong. Elena unlocked her door and pushed it open. Adrian followed her inside, and his first thought was that her space looked exactly like he'd imagined. Warm, lived in, full of small touches that spoke to who she was. Bookshelves crammed with paperbacks and social work textbooks. Photographs tacked to a corkboard showing Elena with various teenagers, all of them smiling. A tiny kitchen with herbs growing in pots on the windowsill. I'll just grab some things, Elena said, heading toward what he assumed was her bedroom. Make yourself at home. While she packed, Adrian moved to the windows. Her apartment overlooked the parking lot and the street beyond. From this vantage point, someone standing across the street would have a clear view inside. He pulled the curtains closed. In the bedroom, he could hear Elena moving around, opening drawers and closet doors. Adrian wandered through the living space, noting the details. A laptop on a small desk, closed. Mail stacked neatly on the kitchen counter. Everything tidy and organized. Then something caught his eye. On the coffee table, a small potted succulent sat in a ceramic pot. The plant was dead, brown, and withered, but that wasn't what made Adrian's stomach clench. Propped against the pot was a photograph. Adrian moved closer, his pulse quickening. The photo showed Elena leaving the youth center, taken from across the street. She was mid-stride, her face in profile, completely unaware of being photographed. Elena, Adrian called, keeping his voice calm. Can you come here for a second? She appeared in the doorway, a duffel bag in hand. What's wrong? He pointed to the photograph without touching it. Was this here when you left yesterday? Elena's face went white. She dropped the bag and crossed to the coffee table, staring down at the image. No, I've never seen this before. Someone was in my apartment. Someone broke in and left this. Don't touch anything, Adrian said, pulling out his phone. We're calling Detective Martinez right now. His hands were steady as he dialed, but inside rage was building. This had escalated from unsettling to terrifying. Whoever was stalking Elena had been inside her home, touching her things, leaving evidence of their obsession. Detective Martinez answered on the third ring. Martinez. Detective, this is Adrian Cole. We spoke with you last night about Elena Brooks's harassment case. We're at her apartment now, and someone's been inside. They left a photograph of her on her coffee table. There was a pause. Is Ms. Brooks there with you now? Yes? Put me on speaker. Adrian switched to speaker mode and held the phone between them. Ms. Brooks, I need you to leave the apartment immediately, Martinez said, her voice sharp and professional. Don't touch anything. Don't take anything except what you're already holding. Go wait in your car and lock the doors. I'm sending officers to you now. Do you understand? Yes, Elena whispered. Good. Stay on the line with me until they arrive. They grabbed Elena's already packed bag and left, Adrian pulling the door closed behind them without locking it. As they descended the stairs, Elena's whole body was trembling. He was in my home, she said, her voice barely audible. He touched my things. He was in my bedroom, my bathroom, my kitchen. Don't think about that right now, Adrian interrupted gently, guiding her toward his car. Just focus on breathing, in and out. You're safe right now. I'm right here. They sat in Adrian's car with the doors locked, Martinez's voice a steady presence on speakerphone, until 2 patrol cars pulled into the parking lot 8 minutes later. The officers took their statement, examined the apartment, and called in a crime scene technician to dust for fingerprints and collect the photograph as evidence. Detective Martinez arrived 30 minutes after that, her expression grim as she listened to Elena recount finding the photo. I need to know if anything else is different in your apartment, Martinez said. Anything moved, missing, added. Take your time and really think. Elena closed her eyes, mentally walking through her space. The succulent. It was alive yesterday morning when I left for work. Healthy. Now it's dead. Show me. They went back inside, Elena pointing out the plant. Martinez crouched down, studying it without touching. Looks like it was doused with something. Bleach, maybe, or another chemical. Killed it quickly. She stood, her jaw tight. This is a message. He's telling you he can get to living things in your space, that he has that kind of access and control. Elena swayed slightly, and Adrian caught her elbow. Can you arrest him now? He asked Martinez. This is breaking and entering, destruction of property. If we can identify him, absolutely. But we don't know who him is yet. Martinez turned to Elena. I'm going to be blunt with you, Ms. Brooks. This person is escalating rapidly. Friday, he was following you at a distance. By Wednesday, he's texting you real-time observations and breaking into your home. That's a significant acceleration. You're not safe here anymore. I know, Elena said. I'm staying with Adrian for now. Martinez's eyes flicked to Adrian, assessing. You two know each other long? About a week, Adrian admitted. But I'm not leaving her to deal with this alone. Good. Miss Brooks, I need you to think hard. Is there anyone who might have access to your apartment? A maintenance worker? A neighbor? An ex-boyfriend or someone who showed interest that you rejected? Elena shook her head slowly. I've lived here 2 years. I don't have an ex. Haven't dated anyone since I moved to this city. The maintenance staff has keys, but they're required to give 24 hours notice before entering. My neighbors keep to themselves, mostly. There's no one I can think of who would do this. What about through your work? Any parents or family members of the kids at the center who might have fixated on you? I've had a few uncomfortable interactions over the years. Parents who disagreed with how we handled situations or who got inappropriately friendly, but nothing that felt like this. Martinez made notes. I'm going to need a list of those names anyway. Anyone who made you uncomfortable, even slightly. We'll run them down. Over the next hour, they worked through the details. Elena provided names of people who'd shown concerning behavior, though she emphasized that most were probably innocent. The crime scene tech finished processing the apartment and bagged the photograph and the dead plant as evidence. There's no sign of forced entry, the tech told Martinez. Either they had a key or they're very skilled at picking locks. Check with building management, Martinez instructed. Find out who has master keys and pull any security footage from the past 48 hours. This complex doesn't have security cameras, Elena said quietly. It's part of why the rent is so cheap. Martinez's expression tightened, but she nodded. All right, Ms. Brooks, here's what's going to happen. We're going to investigate this aggressively. In the meantime, I strongly suggest you stay away from this apartment. If you need to come back for anything, call us first. We'll send an officer with you. She's staying with me, Adrian said again, for as long as necessary. Good. Keep your doors locked. Vary your routines if possible. And if you see anything suspicious, and I mean anything, you call 911 immediately. Don't wait. Don't second guess yourself. Just call. Martinez handed Elena a card. This is my direct number. You can reach me anytime, day or night. Use it if you need to. Elena took the card with shaking hands. Thank you. By the time they left the apartment complex, it was almost 9:30. Adrian called Claire from the car. Hey, running late. Long story. Can you keep Mia until noon? Of course, but Adrian, what's going on? You sound stressed. I'll explain when I see you. Is Mia okay? She's perfect. Currently teaching Marcus how to properly care for her stuffed animals. Apparently he's been doing it wrong for years. Despite everything, Adrian smiled. Thanks, Claire. I owe you. You owe me a detailed explanation, but otherwise we're good. See you at noon. After hanging up, Adrian glanced at Elena. She was staring out the window, her arms wrapped around herself. Talk to me, he said gently. What are you thinking? I'm thinking I want to go back to last Friday and make different choices. Stay home instead of going on a blind date. Not walk to your building, just not start any of this. If you'd done that, you'd still have a stalker. You just wouldn't know about it yet, and you'd still be alone dealing with it. Elena turned to look at him. You really think he was already watching me before Friday? The way this is escalating? Yeah, I do. I think something about that night triggered him to make contact. Maybe seeing you go to another man's apartment. Maybe just the opportunity. But I don't think this started last week, Elena. I think you just became aware of it last week. The thought visibly shook her. How long then? How long has someone been watching me without me knowing? I don't know, but we're going to find out. They drove in silence for a while. Adrian's mind was racing, trying to piece together a puzzle with too many missing pieces. Someone with access to Elena's apartment. Someone who knew her schedule. Someone obsessed enough to photograph her, to break into her home, to send threatening messages. The texts, Adrian said suddenly. Do you still have them? All of them? Yes, I haven't deleted anything. Can you forward them to me? I want to look at the exact wording. Sometimes patterns emerge when you analyze the language. Elena pulled out her phone and started forwarding messages. Adrian's phone buzzed repeatedly as they arrived. Once they were back at his apartment, Adrian spread everything out on his kitchen table. Elena's phone showing the messages, the case number from Detective Martinez, a notepad where he started creating a timeline. Tell me again about everyone who made you uncomfortable at work, Adrian said. Start from the beginning. Elena sat across from him and began to talk. There was Tom Richardson, father of a 15-year-old girl in the program, who'd asked Elena out 3 times despite her polite refusals. Marcus Webb, whose son had been expelled from the center for fighting, and who'd accused Elena of bias and followed her to her car, arguing. David Chen, a volunteer who'd shown up drunk one evening and had to be escorted out. Adrian wrote down each name, noting details. What about the kids themselves? Any teenage boys who might have developed a crush? Probably half of them at some point, Elena said wearily. Teenage boys develop crushes on any woman who's nice to them. But they're kids, Adrian. Awkward kids who grow out of it. Most of them do, Adrian agreed, but not all. How old are the oldest kids in your program? 18. We serve ages 12 to 18. So legally adults, old enough to drive, to have keys copied, to commit crimes. Adrian wasn't suggesting her students were guilty, just that they couldn't be ruled out based on age alone. Elena's expression crumpled. I can't believe one of my kids would do this. These are children I've worked with for years, kids I've helped through family crises and school struggles and first heartbreaks. They trust me, and you trust them, which makes you vulnerable. Adrian reached across the table and took her hand. I'm not saying it's definitely one of them. I'm saying we can't assume it's not just because you care about them. I know, you're right. I just hate this. Hate suspecting everyone. Hate looking at people I know and wondering if they're the one. Before Adrian could respond, his phone rang. Claire. Hey, Adrian Cole, you better start explaining right now what the hell is going on, his sister interrupted, her voice tight with worry. Because a very nice Detective Martinez just called me asking about your relationship with someone named Elena Brooks and whether I know anything about threatening messages or break-ins. Adrian closed his eyes. Of course, Martinez would run him down as part of the investigation. He was technically a man who'd recently entered Elena's life right as a stalking situation escalated. The detective was being thorough. Claire, I promise I'll explain everything when I pick up Mia. But the short version is Elena is being stalked. I'm helping her stay safe. Detective Martinez is doing her job by checking me out. Is Mia in danger? No, the stalker doesn't know about me or where I live. We're being careful. There was a long pause. I need you to be really honest with me right now. Are you in over your head? Adrian looked at Elena, who was watching him with worried eyes. Probably, but I'm not backing out. Of course you're not. You're too stubborn for your own good. Claire's tone softened. Bring Elena with you when you pick up Mia. I want to meet her properly, and I want to make sure you're both okay. Okay? We'll be there at noon. After he hung up, Elena looked stricken. The police think you're involved? That you might be the stalker? They're eliminating possibilities. It's fine. It's not fine. Adrian, you're getting investigated because of me. Your sister is worried. My daughter is perfectly safe and happy with her aunt. Adrian interrupted firmly. And Claire's worry comes from love, not blame. None of this is your fault, Elena. Not a single part of it. How can you say that? If I hadn't come to your door last Friday, then you'd be dealing with this alone, getting increasingly terrified, with no one believing you until something terrible happened. Adrian stood and moved around the table to kneel beside her chair. Listen to me. You didn't cause this. Someone else is doing this to you. Someone sick and dangerous. You are the victim here, not the problem. Do you understand? Elena nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I'm just so tired of being scared. I know, but you're not alone in it anymore. They sat together in Adrian's kitchen as the morning stretched toward noon, going through every detail of the past week, trying to find patterns in the chaos. The text had come from a disposable phone. Martinez had already traced the number to a burner bought with cash at a convenience store. No cameras, no digital trail. The photograph troubled Adrian most. It had been taken from street level, across from the youth center. The angle suggested someone standing casually on the sidewalk, just another pedestrian. But the focus was sharp, professional almost. This wasn't a hasty snapshot. Someone had taken time to compose the shot. Do you ever do activities outside the center? Adrian asked. Field trips, community events, anything where someone might photograph you legitimately? All the time. We do neighborhood cleanups, food drives, park days. There are always parents and community members taking photos. So someone could have been photographing you for months under the guise of documenting center activities. The thought made Elena go pale. I'm in dozens of photos on our website and social media. We post constantly about our programs. Adrian pulled out his laptop and navigated to the youth center's website. Sure enough, there was a gallery section filled with images. Elena appeared in many of them, handing out food boxes, playing basketball with teenagers, painting a mural. These are all public, Adrian said quietly. Anyone could download them, study them, learn your patterns from them. We post to show donors the impact of their contributions, to celebrate the kids' accomplishments. I never thought you had no reason to think someone would use them for this. But going forward, maybe ask them to blur your face or keep you out of photos. Elena wrapped her arms around herself. I hate this. I hate that my life has to change because someone decided to fixate on me. I hate feeling like I did something to encourage this. You didn't, but we have to be smart. At 11:45, they drove to Claire's house. Elena was quiet during the ride, staring out the window. Adrian couldn't imagine what she was going through. The violation of knowing someone had been in her home, the constant fear of being watched, the exhaustion of hypervigilance. Claire opened the door before they reached it, Mia bouncing excitedly behind her. Daddy! Mia launched herself at Adrian, who caught her and swung her up. Aunt Claire taught me a magic trick. Want to see? Absolutely. But first I want you to meet someone special. This is my friend Elena. Mia turned her curious gaze to Elena, studying her with the unfiltered directness only children possess. Hi, are you Daddy's girlfriend? Mia, Adrian said, but Elena was already smiling. I'm your daddy's friend, Elena said gently. It's nice to meet you, Mia. You're pretty. I like your hair. Thank you. I like your dinosaur shirt. Mia beamed and launched into an explanation of each dinosaur pictured on her shirt, their names and dietary preferences, and which ones could fly. Elena listened with genuine interest, asking questions that made Mia light up even more. Claire watched this exchange with a small smile, then gestured for Adrian to step inside while Mia gave Elena the full dinosaur lecture. "She seems nice," Claire said quietly. "Scared, but nice." "She's terrified. Someone broke into her apartment this morning and left a photograph of her on her coffee table." Claire's expression shifted to horror. "Adrian, this is serious. This is dangerous." "I know. Does she have family she can stay with? Friends somewhere else she could go?" "No family, and I'm not sending her away to deal with this alone." Claire studied his face. "You care about her. Really care about her." It wasn't a question, but Adrian answered anyway. "Yeah, I do." "You've known her a week." "I know, doesn't change anything." Claire sighed, but there was affection in it. "You're just like Dad. Mom used to say he made decisions with his heart and justified them with his brain later. Dad was a good man." "He was. And so are you. Just promise me you'll be careful, for Mia's sake, if not your own." "I promise." They rejoined Elena and Mia in the living room. Mia had moved on from dinosaurs to showing Elena her magic trick, which involved making a coin disappear behind her ear through the world's most obvious sleight of hand. Elena acted appropriately amazed, praising Mia's skill in a way that made the little girl glow with pride. Watching them together, something in Adrian's chest tightened. This could have been his life. The simple joy of introducing Mia to someone special without the shadow of danger hanging over everything. But life rarely offered simple joys. You took the complicated ones and found the beauty in them anyway. After lunch, which Claire insisted they stay for, Adrian and Elena headed back to his apartment with Mia in tow. The little girl chattered the entire drive, telling Elena about her stuffed animal collection and her favorite TV shows and the new friend she'd made at school named Sophie, who had a dog. Back at the apartment, Mia accepted Elena's presence with the easy adaptability of children. She showed Elena her room, her toys, her favorite books, asked if Elena wanted to play dinosaurs or princesses or both at the same time. "How about I help your dad make dinner while you play?" Elena suggested. "Then after we eat, if it's okay with your daddy, maybe we can all watch a movie together." Mia turned hopeful eyes to Adrian. "Can we, Daddy? Please?" "Sure, sweetheart. You pick the movie while Elena and I cook." In the kitchen, Adrian started pulling out ingredients for spaghetti while Elena washed her hands at the sink. "She's wonderful," Elena said quietly. "You've done an amazing job with her. Most days I feel like I'm barely keeping it together." "Welcome to parenting. Pretty sure that's universal." They fell into an easy rhythm, Adrian boiling pasta while Elena worked on the sauce, following his directions. Mia's voice drifted from the living room as she narrated an elaborate game involving her stuffed animals. For a moment it felt normal, domestic, like they were just two people making dinner together while a child played nearby, instead of two people hiding from a stalker who'd violated every sense of safety Elena had. Then Elena's phone buzzed. She froze, her face going white. Adrian immediately moved to her side as she pulled out the device with shaking hands. "Unknown, new place, same pretty face. Don't think you can hide from me." The message was accompanied by a photo taken from outside Adrian's building, a photo of Elena visible through his living room window, taken less than 5 minutes ago. Adrian's blood turned to ice. He grabbed Elena's phone and stared at the image, his own living room window, clearly visible from street level, with Elena's silhouette unmistakable behind the glass. "Mia!" he called, keeping his voice steady through sheer force of will. "Come to the kitchen, sweetheart." His daughter appeared in the doorway, a stuffed triceratops in each hand. "What's wrong, Daddy? You look funny." "Nothing's wrong. I need you to go to your room and stay away from the windows, okay? Can you do that for me?" Mia's eyes widened, picking up on the tension. "Why?" "Just a game. I need you to pretend you're a dinosaur hiding from a meteor. Stay in your room until I come get you." Elena knelt down to Mia's level, her voice remarkably calm despite the terror in her eyes. "It'll be fun. You can build a fort with your blankets, make it really safe and cozy." Mia looked between them, uncertainty flickering across her face, but she nodded. "Okay. But can Mr. Snuggles come with me?" "Of course. Take all your stuffed animals. They need protection too." Once Mia disappeared down the hallway, Adrian immediately closed every curtain in the apartment, plunging the space into artificial twilight. Then he called 911. 911, what's your emergency? Someone is outside my building photographing my apartment. I have reason to believe they're stalking someone inside. We need police here immediately. Adrian rattled off his address, his case number with Detective Martinez, and a terse explanation of the situation. Officers are being dispatched now. Stay inside with your doors locked. Don't approach the individual. Understood. Adrian hung up and immediately called Martinez directly. She answered on the first ring. Martinez. Detective, he's here. Outside my building. Just sent Elena a photo taken from the street showing her through my window. He knows where she is. I heard the dispatch. Units are 2 minutes out. Where's your daughter? In her room. Safe? Good. Keep her there. I'm on my way. Adrian paced to the window, carefully peering through a gap in the curtains without revealing himself. The street below looked normal, cars parked along the curb, a few pedestrians. No one obviously watching the building, but he was there, somewhere. How did he find us? Elena whispered, her voice breaking. How did he know where you live? Adrian's mind raced through the possibilities. He could have followed us from your apartment this morning, could have been watching when we left the police station, or... His stomach dropped. The youth center. I've been there 3 times this week. He could have followed me home from there. This is my fault. I brought this to you, to Mia. Elena's breathing was coming faster, panic setting in. I should leave right now. Get out of your life before... Stop. Adrian caught her shoulders gently but firmly. You're not going anywhere. We're handling this. Together. A siren wailed in the distance, growing closer. Within a minute, 2 patrol cars pulled up in front of the building. Adrian buzzed the officers up and met them at his door. Officer Kim was young, probably mid-20s, with sharp eyes that took in everything. His partner, Officer Rodriguez, was older, steadier. They listened as Adrian and Elena explained the situation, showed them the photograph and messages. We need you both to stay inside, Kim said. We're going to canvass the area, check for anyone suspicious. Is there a back exit to this building? Fire escape, Adrian said. Accessible from the 2nd floor. We'll have that covered. Detective Martinez is en route? Should be here any minute. Rodriguez moved to the window, scanning the street. He's probably gone already. Most stalkers don't stick around once they've made contact. They want the fear, not the confrontation. But his words offered little comfort. Martinez arrived 10 minutes later, her expression grim. She went straight to Elena's phone, examining the photograph with a trained eye. This was taken with a zoom lens, she said. See the compression in the background? He's not right outside your building. He's at least a block away, maybe more. Using a telephoto to get this shot. So he could be anywhere, Adrian said. Unfortunately, yes. But it also means he's being careful, keeping distance. That works in our favor. Over the next hour, Martinez coordinated with the patrol officers while Adrian checked on Mia every few minutes. His daughter had built an impressive blanket fort and seemed to have accepted the meteor game explanation, but Adrian could see the confusion in her eyes. She knew something was wrong. Elena sat on the couch, her arms wrapped around herself, staring at nothing. The vibrant woman who'd laughed with Mia just hours ago had been replaced by someone hollowed out by fear. We need to change tactics, Martinez said finally, gathering everyone in the kitchen. This person is escalating rapidly. We're past harassment now. This is criminal stalking with threatening behavior. I'm getting a warrant for Elena's phone records, the burner phone number, everything. We're going to find this guy. How long will that take? Adrian asked. Could be days, could be weeks. In the meantime, I'm recommending both of you consider relocating temporarily, somewhere he doesn't know about. I'm not running, Elena said quietly. I'm tired of being afraid, tired of changing my life because someone decided I'm their obsession. Martinez's expression softened. I understand, but we're talking about your safety, and now Mr. Cole's and his daughter's safety as well. Elena flinched as if struck. You should go to Claire's, she said to Adrian. Take Mia somewhere safe. I'll figure something else out. We've already had this conversation. I'm not leaving you to handle this alone. Adrian, he photographed your daughter's home. Your child is in danger because of me. My child is safe because we're being smart about this. And you're staying right here where I can make sure you're safe too. Martinez watched this exchange with an unreadable expression. What if I told you we might be able to use this to our advantage? They both turned to her. You want her as bait, Adrian said flatly. I want to give this stalker what he thinks he wants, access to Elena in a controlled environment where we can identify and apprehend him. Martinez pulled out her phone and showed them a photo of a small house. Safe house, 2 bedrooms. We install cameras, position plainclothes officers nearby. Elena goes about a limited routine, grocery store, coffee shop, all locations we control. We wait for him to make a move. Absolutely not, Adrian said immediately. It could work, Elena countered, surprising him. It could end this. Or it could get you killed. These operations go wrong all the time. Mr. Cole, Martinez said, her voice patient but firm. I've been working stalking cases for 8 years. This particular stalker has shown a pattern of escalating contact, but no overt violence. He wants to frighten Ms. Brooks, to feel powerful. That's actually a profile we can work with. He's unlikely to become physically aggressive if he believes he's in control. Unlikely isn't impossible. Nothing in police work is impossible, but this is our best shot at catching him before he decides to escalate further. Adrian looked at Elena, trying to read her expression. What do you want to do? I want this to be over. I want to sleep without jumping at every sound. I want to go to work without checking over my shoulder every 30 seconds. I want my life back. Elena met his eyes. If there's a chance this could end it, I have to try. Everything in Adrian wanted to argue, to lock Elena in his apartment and keep her safe through sheer stubborn will. But he saw the determination in her face, the exhaustion that came from living in constant fear. Okay, he said finally, but I'm involved in every step of the planning, and if anything feels wrong, we pull the plug immediately. Martinez nodded. Agreed. We'll set everything up tomorrow. For tonight, you both stay here. I'm posting an officer outside your building. After Martinez left, Adrian sat with Elena on the couch while Mia dozed in her blanket fort, her earlier fear forgotten in the way only children can manage. Are you sure about this? Adrian asked quietly. No, but I'm sure I can't live like this anymore. At least this way I'm doing something instead of just waiting to be victimized again. When this is over, when we catch this guy and you're safe again, I'd like to take you on an actual date, one without stalkers or police involvement. Elena smiled, the expression tired but genuine. I'd like that too, assuming you still want to after all this chaos. Elena, chaos doesn't scare me. Losing people I care about scares me, and I care about you. I know it's only been a week, but I care about you. She leaned her head on his shoulder. I care about you too. You and Mia both, which is why I need you to promise me something. What? If this plan goes wrong tomorrow, if something happens, you take Mia and you don't look back. You protect her first, always. Nothing's going to happen. Promise me anyway. Adrian wrapped his arm around her, pulling her closer. I promise. But it's not going to come to that. They sat together as darkness fell outside, listening to Mia's soft breathing from her fort, both lost in thoughts of what tomorrow might bring. The next morning arrived with brittle sunshine and nervous energy. Martinez picked Elena up at 8, taking her to the safe house to get familiar with the layout and discuss the plan. Adrian stayed home with Mia, trying to maintain normalcy while his mind churned with worry. Claire called at 9. Marcus and I want to take Mia for the day. Something tells me you could use the time to focus on other things. Claire, I can't keep dumping her on you. You're not dumping. We're offering. We love having her. And Adrian, whatever's happening with Elena, I can tell it's serious. Let us help. He agreed, grateful beyond words for his sister's steady presence in his life. By 10, Mia was at Claire's house, happily helping Marcus plant flowers in their garden. Martinez called at noon. We're ready. Elena will leave the safe house at 2, drive to Morrison's Market for groceries, then to that coffee shop, the Grindstone. We'll have officers positioned at both locations and along the route. Unmarked cars. Elena will be wearing a wire. We'll hear everything. I want to be there. Mr. Cole, I want to be there. Not in the operation, not interfering, but nearby, in case something goes wrong. Martinez was silent for a long moment. Fine, but you stay in your vehicle and you do not approach unless I give you explicit clearance. Understood? Understood. At 1:45, Adrian sat in his car 2 blocks from Morrison's Market, his hands gripping the steering wheel. He could see the store entrance from his position, could see the unmarked sedan with Martinez and another detective inside. His radio, Martinez had given him one to monitor the operation, crackled to life. Target entering Morrison's, time is 13:58. All units maintain position. Adrian's heart hammered as he watched Elena's car pull into the parking lot. She looked small, vulnerable, walking into the store alone. Every instinct screamed at him to follow, to protect, to do something other than sit here uselessly. "She's inside," Martinez's voice came through. "Browse like normal, Elena. Take your time." 10 minutes passed. 15. Adrian watched shoppers come and go, scrutinizing each person for signs of suspicious behavior. Then Martinez's voice, sharp and urgent. "We have a possible. Male, late 30s, dark jacket. He entered 30 seconds after the target and is maintaining visual contact. Not shopping, just watching. Moving to intercept." Adrian's blood pressure spiked. Through the store's large windows, he could see figures moving but couldn't make out details. "Sir, this is the police. We need to speak with you." Raised voices, indistinct. "He's running. Suspect fleeing out the back entrance." Adrian threw his car into gear without thinking, pulling around the block toward the rear of the market. He saw the man first, dark jacket, running hard toward a parking lot. 2 officers in pursuit. The man reached a motorcycle, was fumbling with a helmet when the first officer tackled him from behind. They went down hard on the asphalt. Adrian parked and jumped out, getting as close as Martinez would allow. More officers arrived, pulling the struggling man to his feet, cuffing him. His face was visible now, 40-ish, nondescript features contorted with rage. "You can't do this," he was shouting. "I have rights. I wasn't doing anything wrong." Martinez emerged from the store with Elena at her side. Elena's face was pale but composed. When she saw the man in handcuffs, she stopped dead. "Is that him?" Martinez asked. Elena stared for a long moment, then shook her head. "I don't know. I've never seen him before." "Check his phone," one of the officers said, holding up a device pulled from the man's jacket. "Multiple photos of the woman, some taken just now in the store." Martinez took the phone, scrolled through it, her expression darkening. "David Harmon. That name familiar to you, Ms. Brooks?" Elena's eyes widened. "David. The volunteer who got banned from the center, the one who showed up drunk. But that was almost a year ago. Looks like he's been keeping tabs on you since." Martinez turned to the officers. "Get him processed. We'll need to search his residence, his vehicle, everything." As they loaded Harmon into a patrol car, he locked eyes with Elena through the window. The hatred in his gaze was palpable. "You ruined my life," he screamed. "I gave everything to that center and you threw me away like garbage. You deserved to be scared. You deserved—" The door slammed, cutting off his tirade. Adrian reached Elena just as her knees buckled. He caught her, holding her steady as she shook. "It's over," he said quietly. "It's over. He can't hurt you anymore." But Elena was crying now, great heaving sobs of relief and residual terror and exhaustion. "A year. He's been watching me for a year, following me, breaking into my home, all because I did my job, because I enforced safety rules." Martinez approached, her expression sympathetic. "We'll need your statement, but Ms. Brooks, you should know. We found a key to your apartment in his pocket. Building manager confirmed he sweet-talked a maintenance worker into making him a copy months ago, claimed to be your boyfriend. We've also found evidence he's been surveilling you extensively. This is going to be a solid case. He's not getting out anytime soon." Over the next several hours, they processed statements at the police station. Adrian sat beside Elena through all of it, a steady presence while she recounted the fear of the past week, the invasion of her privacy, the constant terror of being watched. Harmon's apartment, when searched, revealed a shrine to obsession. Photos of Elena covered the walls, a detailed schedule of her movements, notes about her routines, her friends, her favorite places. The broken plant from her apartment sat on his kitchen counter, a trophy of his violation. "He blamed you for everything that went wrong in his life," Martinez explained. "Lost his job, his marriage fell apart, turned to alcohol. In his mind, being banned from the center, the one place he felt important, was the catalyst. And you were the face of that rejection." "I was just doing my job," Elena whispered. "I know. And you did nothing wrong. But men like Harmon don't see it that way. They need someone to blame, and they fixate. By the time they left the station, it was after 8. Adrian drove Elena back to his apartment in silence, both of them processing the surreal shift from danger to safety. Inside, Adrian's apartment felt different, lighter. The oppressive weight of fear that had hung over the past week had lifted, leaving behind exhaustion and relief in equal measure. "I can't believe it's actually over," Elena said, sinking onto the couch. "I keep waiting for my phone to buzz with another message." "It won't. He's locked up. Martinez said they're charging him with stalking, breaking, and entering criminal threats. He's looking at serious time." Elena closed her eyes. "I should feel victorious, relieved, something other than just empty." Adrian sat beside her, close but not touching. "You've been running on adrenaline for days. Now that the threat's gone, you're crashing. It's normal." "Is it normal to feel guilty, like somehow I should have seen this coming, should have done something different?" "You did everything right. You trusted your instincts. You reported it. You took precautions. None of this was your fault." Elena turned to look at him, her eyes searching his face. "You keep saying that. Why?" "Because it's true. And because I need you to believe it. Harmon made his choices. You were just living your life." She leaned against him, and Adrian wrapped his arm around her shoulders, feeling the tension slowly drain from her body. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything this week, for believing me from the very first moment, for not making me face this alone, for being exactly who I needed when I needed it most." "You're welcome. Though, honestly, I think I got as much out of this as you did. Getting stalked by proxy and nearly having your daughter put in danger, that's what you got out of it?" Adrian smiled. "I got reminded that there are things worth taking risks for, people worth showing up for. I'd been sleepwalking through life for years, just doing the minimum to get by. You woke me up." Elena shifted to face him fully. "Adrian Cole, are you saying I'm worth the chaos?" "Every second of it." She kissed him then, soft and tentative and full of promise. Adrian kissed her back, tasting salt from her tears and something sweeter underneath. Hope, maybe, or the beginning of something real. When they broke apart, Elena was smiling. "So about that actual date you mentioned, the one without stalkers? How's Friday night? Claire owes me at least a dozen more babysitting favors." "Friday's perfect." They sat together on Adrian's couch, talking quietly about everything and nothing, until exhaustion finally pulled them under. Elena fell asleep first, her head on Adrian's shoulder. Adrian stayed awake longer, watching the gentle rise and fall of her breathing, marveling at the strange path that had led them here. A week ago, he'd opened his door to a terrified stranger. Tonight, he was sitting with someone who'd become essential in a matter of days. Life was strange like that. Sometimes the most important people arrived when you least expected them, under circumstances you'd never have chosen. His phone buzzed quietly. A text from Claire. "Claire, Mia's asleep. Heard on the news they caught the guy. You okay?" Adrian. "Yeah, we're okay. Thanks for everything this week." Claire. "That's what family does. See you tomorrow." And Adrian? "I'm proud of you." Adrian set his phone aside and closed his eyes, letting himself finally relax. The past week had been terrifying and exhausting, and completely outside anything he'd expected from his quiet, predictable life. But it had also been the week he'd met Elena. The week he'd remembered how to care about someone beyond his small circle. The week he'd learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply show up for another person and refuse to leave them alone in their fear. Friday night came with cool autumn air and clear skies. Adrian had convinced Elena to let him pick her up at her apartment. She'd moved back in 2 days earlier after the police had finished processing it, and she'd had the locks changed. Again. She answered the door wearing a dark blue dress that made her eyes look impossibly bright, her hair loose around her shoulders. "Hi," she said, a little shy despite everything they'd been through. "Hi yourself. You look beautiful." "You clean up pretty well yourself." Adrian had opted for slacks and a button-down shirt, had even gotten a haircut that afternoon. Claire had taken one look at him and declared him almost presentable. They drove to a small Italian restaurant on the other side of town, deliberately choosing somewhere neither of them had been before. A fresh start, neutral ground. Over pasta and wine, they talked about normal things. movies they wanted to see, books they'd recently read, Mia's latest obsession with learning magic tricks, the new mural the kids at the center were planning. It felt surreal and wonderful and completely ordinary in the best possible way. "Can I tell you something?" Elena said as they waited for dessert. "Anything. That first night, when I showed up at your door terrified, part of me expected you to turn me away, to tell me I was overreacting or to call the police and close the door. When you let me in instead, when you believed me without question, it changed something in me. Made me remember that there are still people in the world who choose kindness first. You're making me sound way more heroic than I am. I just did what felt right. That's exactly what makes it heroic. You didn't think about it. You just acted. You saw someone who needed help, and you helped." Elena reached across the table and took his hand. "I'm not saying what happened was good, but I am saying I'm grateful it led me to you. Even though it was terrifying? Especially because it was terrifying. Because you showed me who you are when things get hard. A lot of people talk about being there for others. You actually do it." Adrian squeezed her hand. "You made it pretty easy. You're kind of amazing, you know that?" "I'm really not. I'm just trying to get by like everyone else." "That's what amazing people always say." They lingered over dessert and coffee, reluctant to let the evening end. When they finally left the restaurant, Adrian drove Elena home and walked her to her door. "Do you want to come in?" she asked. "I do, but Claire has Mia, and I should probably get home before it gets too late." Elena nodded, understanding but slightly disappointed. "Rain check?" "Definitely." She kissed him goodnight, lingering this time, and Adrian felt something settle into place in his chest. This was real. This mattered. Whatever was developing between them had survived chaos and fear and come out stronger on the other side. "Text me when you get home," Elena said as they parted. "Always." Driving back to his apartment, Adrian found himself smiling for no particular reason. His phone buzzed at a red light. "Elena, thank you for tonight, for all the nights, for being you." Adrian, "Thank you for knocking on my door. Best thing that's happened to me in years." Elena, "Even with the stalker?" Adrian, "Especially with the stalker. Made me appreciate the good parts even more." When Adrian picked up Mia from Claire's house, his sister took one look at his face and grinned. "That good, huh?" "That good. When do we get to see Elena again? Mia's been asking about her." "Soon. We're taking things slow, but yeah, soon." Claire hugged him. "I'm happy for you, Adrian. You deserve this." "I'm pretty sure I don't, but I'm grateful anyway." Weeks turned into months. Elena became a regular presence in Adrian's life, fitting seamlessly into the rhythm he and Mia had established. She attended Mia's kindergarten play and cheered louder than anyone when the little girl forgot her lines and improvised. She taught Adrian to cook beyond just pasta and sandwiches. She introduced Mia to painting, and soon the refrigerator gallery expanded exponentially. The trial came and went. Harmon was sentenced to 6 years for stalking, breaking and entering, and criminal threats. Elena attended the sentencing, Adrian beside her, and when the judge read the verdict, she cried. Not from fear this time, but from relief. "It's really over," she said afterwards, standing on the courthouse steps. "I can finally put it behind me." "How does it feel?" "Like I can breathe again." 6 months after that terrible week when their lives first intersected, Adrian proposed. Nothing fancy, just the two of them and Mia at the park, where he and his daughter spent Saturday mornings. He'd gotten Mia involved in the planning, and she'd taken her role as helper very seriously. "Elena," Mia said, tugging on the woman's sleeve, "Daddy wants to ask you something." Elena looked up, saw Adrian kneeling with a ring box, and her eyes went wide. "I know we met under the worst circumstances," Adrian said. "I know we've only known each other 6 months, but I also know that those 6 months have been the best of my life. You've reminded me what it means to care about someone, to show up for someone, to choose someone every single day, and I want to keep choosing you, for as long as you'll let me." Elena was crying, nodding before he even finished. "Yes, yes, absolutely yes." Mia cheered, and several nearby families applauded, and Adrian slipped the ring onto Elena's finger, feeling like the luckiest man alive. They were married in Claire's backyard 6 months later, a small ceremony with close friends and family. Mia served as flower girl and took the job so seriously that she corrected the minister's pronunciation twice. Elena wore a simple white dress and flowers in her hair. Adrian cried during his vows and didn't care who saw. Life settled into something beautiful and ordinary. Elena moved into Adrian's apartment. Then they found a house together, a small place with a yard where Mia could play and room for the family they talked about building. She continued working at the youth center, making a difference in teenagers' lives every day. Adrian kept doing accounting, appreciating the steady predictability after the chaos of how they'd started. They had their struggles, moments when Elena's trauma from being stalked resurfaced, a strange car parked too long on their street, an unfamiliar face at the youth center. But Adrian was always there, grounding her, reminding her she was safe. And slowly, over time, those moments became less frequent. The fear receded, replaced by confidence and joy and the simple pleasure of a life built together. On their first anniversary, Elena gave Adrian a gift, a framed photograph of his apartment building, taken from the street at night. "I know this might seem weird," she said as he unwrapped it, "but I wanted to remember. That building represents the night my life changed, the moment I knocked on a stranger's door and found someone who would show up for me. Who would believe me? Who would stand beside me through the worst and still be there for the best?" Adrian pulled her close, looking at the image of the building where their story began. "You know what I see when I look at this? I see the night I stopped sleepwalking through my own life. The night I remembered that taking a risk on someone can lead to everything. We were both risks, weren't we? The best kind." Years later, when people asked how they met, Elena and Adrian would smile at each other, sharing a private look that held 1,000 memories. "It's a long story," Elena would say. "She knocked on my door," Adrian would add. And sometimes, if the moment felt right and the audience was patient, they'd tell the whole truth about fear and courage, about believing someone when they're afraid, about the strange and wonderful ways people find each other in their darkest moments. But mostly, they'd just smile and hold hands and be grateful that on one autumn night, a terrified woman knocked on a stranger's door, and a lonely man chose to let her in. Because sometimes the safest place a person can find isn't a building or a city or even a carefully planned life. Sometimes the safest place is the kindness waiting in another person's heart. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, that kindness becomes home.